Today's podcast video is to address some questions I continue to get about paragraph C of the addendum for property subject to mandatory membership in a property owners association. Paragraph C, which is titled Fees and Deposits for Reserves, reads, except as provided in paragraphs A and D, buyers shall pay any and all association fees, deposits, reserves, and other charges associated with the transfer of the property not to exceed blank, and sellers shall pay any excess. What this means is that any fee that the association charges because ownership of the property is transferring will be paid as negotiated. The contract supersedes any allocation the association may make differently. When the association sends the invoice to be paid at closing, the invoice often allocates certain fees to the buyer and others to the seller. The invoice rarely follows the contract. The most recent question had to do with the reserve account that was charged by the association on the invoice, and when the invoice was submitted for closing, it had the buyer paying the $605 for the deposit. However, the contract capped the buyer's fees at $250. Irrespective of how the association allocates those fees, they must be paid as negotiated in the contract. There is still some confusion about who pays prepaid dues when an association charges those at closing. Since it is charged at closing, does that get split according to the negotiation paragraph C of the addendum? My answer to that question is no. The only fees that are covered by paragraph C are those fees that are charged because the property is transferring. Or said in another way, but for those transfer, those fees would not be charged. Prepaid dues are dues that will have to be paid whether the property transfers or not. The association is just requiring a new buyer to prepay the first couple of months so the association has time to change their billing records. To those of you who argue otherwise, I remind you of the proration paragraph of the contract. If we charge the seller for the prepaid dues under paragraph C of the addendum, then we must prorate based on the provisions of paragraph 13 of the contract, where it states assessments, dues, and rents will be prorated through the closing date. When you go to closing, please carefully review the fees charged by the association and make sure they are allocated on the CD as negotiated between your seller and buyer. If you have a topic or concern you think might be of interest to others and want discussed on a future podcast or video, please send it to me at tipoftheweek@allegiancetitle.com. I look forward to seeing you soon.